Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, outlining President Park Geun-hye's trust-building policy with North Korea 6 months into office. South Korea's Unification minister says the current mistrust between the two Koreas could provide an opportunity for Seoul to lead a new order of inter-Korean relations. Syrian rebels claim hundreds of people were killed in a government-led chemical weapons attack near Damascus Wednesday. The international community has called on the UN team in Syria investigating previously alleged chemical attacks to look into the latest incident. Plus, Japan's Fukushima plant operator TEPCO says highly radioactive water leaking from a tank likely seeped into the Pacific Ocean. The country's nuclear agency decides to raise the international radioactive leak severity level by 2 notches to 3, or serious incident. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, August 22nd, and I'm Choi Yu-sun here in Seoul. While the two Koreas are back on talking terms again, many experts have positive reviews for President Park Geun-hye's North Korea policy, also known as her trust-building process. Our Hwang Sung-hee has the details, and she tells us more on the path that may lead to the start of warmer ties with Pyongyang.
South Korea's top North Korea policymaker said Wednesday that there is no trust between the two Koreas, but stressed that this lack of trust can serve as an opportunity for opening up a new era of inter-Korean relations.
There is a high level of distrust between the two Koreas now. But paradoxically, I think now is the time for us to take the lead in setting up a new order based upon trust.
6 months after President Park Geun-hye introduced the so-called trust-building process to deal with the North, South Korean Unification Minister Lee Gil-jae outlined the concept of the policy to reporters on Wednesday. According to Minister Liu, trust can be regained through a two-track approach of dialogue and pressure.
The trust-building process has both hard-line and soft-line approaches. It can be summarized as a policy that effectively uses a balance of dialogue and pressure.
Some say President Park's carrot-and-stick approach has been relatively effective. The two Koreas agreed earlier this month to reopen their jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex and are waiting to hold further talks on resuming other forms of inter-Korean cooperation projects. But as the Koreas try to overcome years of mistrust, there are hurdles in the way. They will meet on Friday to discuss resuming reunions for families separated during the Korean War, but are still butting heads over where the meeting should take place. Minister Liu says Seoul will not rush things with the North, but rather take its time and start with building much-needed trust between the two countries. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Power authorities here in the nation issued a level 2 power shortage alert Wednesday afternoon following the abrupt suspension of yet another nuclear reactor. The breakdown of the number 6 reactor at the Hanbit nuclear power plant in South Jeolla province caused the nation's power reserves to tumble from 4.5 million kilowatts to below 3.7 million. This triggered a level 2 warning, which put the country at attention for power outages. Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power says it will take at least a week to determine the cause of the technical glitch, which led to the breakdown. As fear of power supply shortages continue to grip the nation this summer, saving electricity has been top of mind for most Koreans. Our Ji Myung-gil reports on how, in the fear of the crisis, the government has unveiled a set of plans to reward those who save electricity and punish those who waste it.
For many Koreans, this summer's high temperatures may have been a bit more unpleasant compared to years past, because the country has been struggling to stave off power shortages. To turn the tide, the ruling Saenuri Party's Special Committee on Energy announced revised plans on Wednesday to curb electricity consumption.
The more electricity you use, the more you will be fined, although we will charge less for those who need financial support.
The government plans to maintain the current electricity price rate for people who use less than 200 kilowatts per month, reduce fees on those who use electricity in the 200 to 600 kilowatt range, and raise fees on those using more than 900 kilowatts. But restructuring price bills only treats the symptoms. Larger issues remain, such as cases of corruption within the nuclear industry. The Special Committee on Energy plans to punish any entity that is found to have forged safety certificates or supplied fake parts to nuclear power plants with fines of up to $4.5 million, a drastic rise from the current $45,000 fine. The committee's recommendations will be submitted as a bill to the National Assembly, and if passed, the changes will take effect. The moves would help mitigate the crisis, but with 6 of Korea's nuclear reactors currently out of operation, the energy shortages and concerns are almost assuredly going to continue. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Stocks in Seoul hit a 5-week low on Wednesday on mounting fears over how the markets will react to the pullback of monetary easing by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Other developing economies in Asia have been hit harder, particularly India, which may be in for the worst recession since 2008. Our Oh Jin-ju has more.
Investors are taking their money out from these economies over fears that the Fed tapering will raise U.S. borrowing costs and make it harder for developing nations to secure dollars they have used to support domestic demand and cover up their current account deficits. Some of the hardest hit countries have been India, Indonesia, and Thailand.
Economic growth in these countries is very low, and the overall economic fundamentals of these countries have greatly weakened. In particular, India has seen its current account deficit expand in recent years, which has led experts to speculate that it might face a crisis.
The Indian rupee slumped to a record low against the greenback on Tuesday, fueling fears Asia's third largest economy is headed towards a full-blown crisis. Analysts are saying that the worst has yet to come.
So I think this time the recession is more fundamental, more India-centric recession, whereas US has been progressing, and I think it's more serious and it could be definitely more troublesome. I think the unfortunate reality is we are in for, I think, more troubled time than the 2008 recession.
Then what about Korea? Will the Fed scale back affect it as much as other emerging Asian markets? Experts say no. However, they do warn that Korea will not be free of impact.
Korea's dependence on trade is very high. It has a sensitive economic structure that could fluctuate due to changes and shocks in the global financial market.
They explain that the emerging countries in Asia are Korea's major export markets, and should these economies slow, it will affect the Korean economy as well. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
Korea's finance minister, however, has a differing outlook on the fate of the Korean economy in regards to the Fed's plans. Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok says fluctuations in the local currency have been minimal in scope, while money is flowing into the nation's stock market. He went on to add that the importance of keeping a healthy fiscal balance cannot be stressed enough. Hyun did say, however, that the government should keep a close eye on the global financial market. Korea's major conglomerates are pumping more money than ever into research and development. According to findings from the Korea Exchange and the Financial Supervisory Service, the country's top 10 conglomerates spent almost $12 billion on R&D in the first half of the year. That's a nearly 20% jump compared to the same period in 2012. Samsung Electronics topped the list of R&D spenders in the first 6 months of the year at about $6 billion. Korea is becoming a target of anti-dumping lawsuits as countries opt for trade protectionism amid the sluggish global economy. According to recent data released by the nation's financial industry and the World Bank, The number of anti-dumping lawsuits against Korea almost doubled last year from 11 cases to 21, the world's second largest figure. China was the country sued the most for anti-dumping charges last year with 56 cases. Emerging economies were named in more than 85% of the 168 anti-dumping cases worldwide in 2012.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday opposition forces in Syria have accused the government of ordering a chemical weapons attack that killed up to 1,400 people, including many women and children. The Assad regime admits attacking the area but denies using chemical agents. The UN Security Council will hold an emergency session Wednesday to try and work out what actually happened and what to do next. A warning, there are highly distressing images throughout this report by our Connie Lee.
Videos uploaded onto social media sites show people choking, gagging, and convulsing after an apparent chemical weapons attack by Syrian government forces. Opposition fighters accuse President Bashar al-Assad's regime of attacking hundreds of people with chemicals near Damascus on Wednesday. Rebels and medics say the death toll could be as high as 1,400, and the numbers are likely to rise, with hundreds more critically wounded all around the area. The UN Security Council has called an emergency session for Wednesday, and the U.S. immediately made a formal request to the UN to look into the attack. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's press office said the UN chief was shocked by the most recent report.
The Secretary General reiterates that any use of chemical weapons by any side under any circumstances would violate international law.
The Syrian government admitted to carrying out military operations in the area, but denies any use of chemical arms.
The general leadership of the army confirms these allegations are completely false and are part of the dirty media war that is led by some countries through the media against Syria.
UN inspectors are currently in Damascus investigating previous allegations of chemical weapons use. And following these latest claims, the White House is calling for unrestricted access to all sites in Syria to thoroughly investigate the alleged use of chemical weapons there. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
A court in Egypt has ordered the release of former President Hosni Mubarak amid reports that he could be a free man as early as Thursday. The 85-year-old still faces charges of failing to stop the killing of protesters during the 2011 uprising against him. Last year, he was found guilty and sentenced to life, but the ruling was overturned on appeal. That retrial opened in May, but Mubarak has now served the maximum amount of pre-trial detention permitted in the case. Mubarak's release comes as his successor and Egypt's first democratically elected president, Mohamed Morsi, remains under lock and key by the interim military government. The operator of Japan's crippled nuclear power plant has admitted the highly radioactive water leaking from a tank at Fukushima is thought to have seeped into Pacific Ocean. In a statement Wednesday, TEPCO said about half of the 300 tons of leaked contaminated water was absorbed into ground, but the 6 millisieverts per hour of radiation was measured inside a nearby drain, meaning some water likely drained into the sea. The country's nuclear agency went further to raise concerns that more tanks at the plant may be letting out radioactive water after they were built hastily after the 2011 disaster. Earlier, the agency said it would bump up the level of crisis 2 notches to 3 serious incidents on an international scale for radiological releases. The International Atomic Energy Agency is observing the current crisis seriously and has offered to help when needed. Back here in the nation, more banks are working around the schedules of their customers. Eschewing the typical bank hours of 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., some branches are extending opening hours to the evenings and even weekends. Our Kim Min-ji tells us more about the banking industry's efforts to attract more customers and make up for dwindling profits.
It's 2 in the afternoon and the shutters at this bank begin to roll up. The bank has broken the traditional opening hours of 9 to 4 and instead it operates from 2 p.m. to 9 in the evening. The shift in opening hours is aimed at meeting the busy schedules of working people and families who will no longer have to struggle to meet the tight regular working hours of a bank.
During the hours of 7 to 9, families who come together can discuss issues on the spot and make decisions together before purchasing our financial products.
Some banks have even started opening on Sundays to draw in migrant workers who find it hard to make it to the bank during weekdays.
I'm only free on Sundays. Now I can visit the bank on my day off.
Despite the extra burden on bank employees who have to give up their weekends, the banks are able to reap in extra profits through remittance fees.
Our branch mainly deals with remittances to China. Foreign workers from Thailand and Indonesia also send money to their countries.
The net profit of Korean banks was at 1.1 trillion won, or roughly $984 million during the second quarter of this year, shrinking by almost half from the same period a year ago. The banks hope that the new working hours will be an opportunity to bring in profits to make up for their sluggish performance. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
A group of Japanese companies has pledged to invest in Korea's largest man-made island in Ansan City. The landmark project on Lake Sihwa is expected to become a regional symbol and an engine for the local economy. Our Polly takes us on site.
Here in Ansan City on Korea's western coast, the Pandaesum project is beginning to take shape across Lake Sihwa. Translated as Half Moon Island, the massive development project plans to build various facilities such as a convention center and marina complex. The artificial island will span across 170,000 square meters and is set to be completed in 2019 at a cost of nearly $1.1 billion.
Korean companies will be able to utilize the space at Lake Sihwa in connection with marine and leisure tourism. I believe it will truly help the local economy and create jobs.
The commercial project is gaining further momentum with considerable interest from foreign investors. Representatives from 15 Japanese companies have come to Korea to pledge some $313 million in funding. Investors say their proximity to Incheon International Airport and the area's high growth potential were key factors in their decision to do business here.
First, we saw that the environment was great, but above else, the surrounding market is good and therefore a decision was made to invest here.
The site hopes to become a landmark of Ansan as new hotel resorts and recreational facilities give local businesses an economic boost, while providing a brighter future for the city and its people. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off in international football. Now, early Wednesday morning, football fans here in the nation stayed up to watch Park Ji-sung's season debut at PSV Eindhoven as they took on AC Milan during the first leg of the UEFA Champions League playoffs. But after the match, he was named the man of the match, according to Goal.com. The winger left the match in the 69th minute after playing a total of 68 minutes while covering 8.81 kilometers in the match. While he didn't score in the match, he did play the role of a playmaker as Goal.com named him the man of the match during the 1-1 draw against AC Milan.
And staying in football, the quarterfinals of the AFC Champions League took place earlier this morning between FC Seoul and Al Ahly. Now, Dejan Damjanovic was able to score in the 10th minute of the match to give the Korean side a 1-0 lead after the first half. Now, Al Ahly does score the equalizer in the second half as the match finishes 1-1, your final score. So with that said, moving on to some Wednesday night KBO action as the NC Dinos pull off a 2-game sweep against the Tusan Bears 7-5, thanks to a couple of home runs from Lee Ho-jun. Also, the Samsung Lions avoid the sweep against the SK Wyverns as they beat SK 9-7. Now it's time to check out the other two games here, starting off with the LG Twins taking on the Nexen Heroes. Now shifting over to the game, we start off in the second inning. Seo Dong-woo at bat drills one to deep right field. This one a 2-run shot as Nexen takes an early 2-0 lead. But fourth inning here, the captain Lee Byung-gyu an RBI double to right field cuts the deficit before Lee Jin-young at bat in the fifth inning with the bases loaded, RBI single up the middle, and the ball game's tied 2-2. Shifting to the seventh inning, Park Yong-taek RBI single up the middle gives the LG Twins the 3-2 lead before this next batter here, Chung Sung-hoon making it 4-2 with an RBI single to center. Eighth inning, here comes the Nexen Heroes here. Kim Min-sung deep to left field. This one back. Gone, a 3-run dinger as Nexen takes the lead before Chung Gi-young would cap the comeback here with a sac fly to right as Nexen rallies back to take this game 6-4 as LG drops back down to second place in the league. And next up, the Lotte Giants taking on the Hanwha Eagles. First inning, Chun Ju-nu RBI double to left field gives the Lotte Giants the early 1-0 lead. Next inning, check out this play. A defensive mistake by the catcher brings home Kang Min-ho, who by the way is a catcher as well, safe at the plate, 2-0 Lotte. Before this next play here, Chung-hoon, he's going to make this 3-0 with an RBI single to right. Next play, he's been red hot. Son Ah-sup capping the 3-run second inning with an RBI ground out as Lotte now takes a 4-0 lead after 2 innings. Next inning, more Lotte offense. Hwang Sung-young this time is going to single to center field here, but an errant throw by the center fielder is going to score 2 more runners coming home, and all of a sudden it's 6-0 Lotte. Shifting to the $6 million man, Kim Tae-gyun, back, a 2-run shot deep to left field, and it's 6-2 Lotte. Bases loaded now, Lee Dae-soo at bat, 2-run single to center field, and all of a sudden it's 6-4 Lotte. But no matter, rally cut short as the Lotte Giants hang on to take this game 6-4, with Shane Newman earning his 13th win of the season. And staying in baseball, but over in Japan, where big boy Lee Dae-ho hit his 19th home run of the season, this time against the SoftBank Hawks in the 4th inning of the game. Now, the solo shot was his first home run for Lee Dae-ho in 19 days as the Oryx Buffaloes took this game 2-0. Now, currently Lee Dae-ho is slumping a bit as his average dipped down to .308 so far this season. And with that said, finishing things off with the semifinals of the pro-amateur competition in the KBL, Korea University continues to impress the pros as they sneak in a win against the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus 73-72, with last year's champion Sangmu beating Seoul SK Knights 75-61. So later today, Korea University will look to complete their run against the military team during the finals. And so with that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Thursday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, wasn't it too hot to be a farewell summer heat wave yesterday? In fact, Seoul reached up to 33.9 degrees Celsius, which is a record-breaking temperature for this summer. Now, today is gonna be hot, but not as hot as yesterday. And unlike we expected, rain clouds won't move until the late evening, so I don't think you need an umbrella for your commutes today. But there is a chance of passing showers in some of the southern provinces at times, but it should be a spotty one. Now, the rain clouds will move in tonight, will bring much needed rain to much of the country, and it's likely to continue till tomorrow to let us get away from the summer heat wave, and daytime highs will be 2 to 3 degrees lower than today. Now, the amount of precipitation should ease thirst of droughts, as we are expecting 10 to 50 millimeters for Jeju and 30 to 70 millimeters for the rest of the peninsula. Now, most of the rain will go away by Friday in the central region, but southern provinces expect to receive till Saturday afternoon. Well, right now there's a thin layer of clouds covering up the nation, so we are waking up to mostly to partly sunny skies, but towards the midday we'll see increasing clouds, and today should be the last day of extreme heat, so let's take a look at those numbers. Well, you probably have felt a bit hot last night because our morning lows are above 25 degrees Celsius, and daytime highs for Busan, Seoul, Daegu, and Gwangju will hike up to 31 to 34 respectively. Moving over to other places, it looks like Jeju and Daejeon will soar to 34, while Dokdo and Mount Gyeongang tops out at 29 and 27. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Thank you for watching.